This isn't my phone. This is the phone I use to boost up this thing.
Oh,
If I put this on my lap.
and I'll take my pen.
Okay, we're at 9:59, almost well, technically we're live now. And we could just go ahead and get started, I suppose. Hope you guys are all doing well. I imagine we'll have some more people popping in because I didn't get as many emails today saying that they couldn't make it. But of course, I only sent the reminder this morning. My apologies. I don't know, the days just speed on up and they meld together. Obviously, I'm seeing the head shake, so I'm not the only one there.
What this is.
Let's see, I'm going to keep putting you guys on mute just in case there's other stuff going on in the background. There we go. All right. So today we have quite a few things to go over. I think that in the email that I sent out to everyone for this invitation, I mentioned Vanco, where they've got 2 opportunities. Okay. So one of them is the webinar that is already tomorrow. So I wanted to mention that right away because I'll send this in my post meeting email to everyone that the webinar piece is tomorrow, but you can download their Easter giving kit at any point. It's supposed to be tools for increasing giving for Easter. Glancing through the stuff, I imagine that it's all tied to Vanco products, like maybe text giving or things like that, which your church might not have. I still think it's a good idea to take a look at what they have, download it all, and see what they're saying for the different items, because you might have something similar to it, or maybe you don't, but you could tweak what they're saying as a social media post or in a congregational email. So it's worth it just to take a look. It might give you an idea for something totally different. Okay, and disclaimer, we don't get any benefits from mentioning Vanco. We're not, this isn't supposed to be free publicity for Vanco. It's just gleaning off of what's out there free for churches. All right, then the next item I wanted to mention is COVID-19 webinars. We don't have a new one scheduled right now. I know that we're going to be meeting as the COVID-19 response team for the conference very soon here. In fact, it might even be this week, I'm not sure. But we're going to be talking more about the angle. We were talking before about safety and precautions to take to be able to reopen. And there's a lot of new things that we're learning, like the rest of the country and the world about COVID-19. So we're going to talk about different things like in Nevada right now, I believe there's new legislation where they're saying churches can operate with 50% capacity. So we need to talk about that to find out. So is that something that as a conference we're endorsing as well? Or are we saying, hey, your local government is saying this, but here's what science is saying. So please watch out. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because yesterday I received an email asking about a webinar that we had in the past called Risk Mitigation Strategies for Choirs. So if you guys missed it, if you hadn't heard about it, any of those types of COVID-19 webinars, you can access them by going to dscumc.org/COVID-19-webinars. And they're all linked on the same page where we've got the church reopening guidelines. They're accessible there as well. So you would go to our homepage, click on I think it's a green button for the church reopening guidelines. Let me double check. I know it's all the way on the right. Yes, green button all the way on the right called church reopening guidelines. And then when you get to that page, you can find all of the stuff that we've published in the past for it. So again, hey, Mary, that
Hey,
was,
how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm going to mute you real quick. Let's see here. There we go. And so that was for the COVID-19 webinars that we've had. They're all compiled at that dscumc.org/COVID-19-webinars page. Okay, then since we're on the COVID-19 webinars topic, for Zoom, just kind of touching back in case you guys have been using Zoom more and more like the rest of us. And you know, a lot of times what we learn, it's just try and experience and maybe an epic fail, but you learned a great lesson. So why not try to check out what some of Zoom's training resources are in advance? What the heck? Try something new. Why not? So they do have live and on-demand webinars available. If you go to zoom.us/events, and the other link that they have where you can find a bunch of their COVID-19 resources that they put together. So the events one is more like they'll have a deep dive into all of Zoom tools. Maybe the next day, one's scheduled on only everything you need to know about breakout rooms. And then maybe the day after that, everything you need to know about webinars. So it's different topics on their tools, but they've got another one that's called zoom.us/docs. That's DOCS/EN for English -US/COVID-19.html. On that page, they have, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and go to it. I'll share my screen real quick. So this is the stuff they put together for support during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, it goes back to their training resources, but talks about privacy and security. A big thing I think right now is the Zoom 5.0 update, and it's actually 5.2, I think. I'm highlighting that one because this past week and a half for conference practices for different, like the gathering that's happening today and tomorrow. And I think there was a camping event that happened last weekend. So we've been practicing doing breakout rooms. We've been practicing doing the Q&As. I can't remember what else, but we noticed that sometimes some of our practice participants or practicing hosts were experiencing issues. Maybe they didn't have access to breakout rooms. Only some people did, but not everybody saw it. And that, we believe, was because not everybody had done the latest update for their Zoom app. So it's really important to check on that every now and then. And one of the ways to do that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll share my screen real quick. Can I do it? Yes, I think I can. No, darn it. I don't have it set up. Oh, maybe it. No, shoot. All right. Well, one of the ways to check for an update is to launch your Zoom app. So that would be the little blue and white icon that might be in your, if you're on a PC, you might have to go to your start menu and then look for the Zoom app. If you've got a Mac, you maybe have Zoom either within the Launchpad or maybe it's somewhere on your toolbar at the bottom. Either way, launch the little icon. So it's different than going to the website. You launch the little icon, and then you get that little pop-up window that if you're on the home page of your pop-up window, you see those 4 boxes, the back to meeting, join, schedule, and screen share. So if you see that, then you're in the app. On the top right-hand corner, you'll see your profile picture. If you click on that, you can, another tiny little window pops up, and towards the bottom of the list of things that pops up is check for updates. Then clicking on that will show you if there's any pending updates, and it'll ask you if you want to run the updates or not. So that's how you do it. highly recommend that you mention this to your church members, anybody that's participating regularly in small groups using Zoom. Just run the updates, because it could cause a long delay in your meeting if some of the people in the meeting can't access the tools that you're telling them to go to. It's super frustrating, because who thinks of that? That, oh, you probably have an old version. No, nobody thinks of that. It took us quite a few tries to realize, you know what? This keeps happening, and we found out. So watch out for that. Okay. Now, the Where Love Lives campaign. For March, I don't know if you all had already heard that for March, it's the bishop's turn to provide local resources for the Desert Southwest Conference. So he has a video message and a pastoral prayer that he's put together. I'm working on loading that onto the website later today. It will be ready in time for the March newsletter next week on Tuesday. But as soon as I have it up and ready, I will email all of you church communicators to let you know it is now live. You can download it, or you can play it off of But there will be an article in the March newsletter where it talks about this March resource. And so it's the bishop's message, but there's also going to be some additional resources for March that will be released. I believe it's like March 12th. And that's being created right now by the Fountains, a UMC. And so I'm excited about that. I don't know what they're going to put out there. They always do great work. They've been working on it for a little bit, and I'm guessing, no, I shouldn't even guess, because I don't know for sure. We talked about lots of ideas of what's going to come, but as soon as I get any hint at all, I will email everybody or mention it in the next Tuesday talk. Last week, I talked about the April stuff that's coming up. It's a large video message. By large, I mean it's almost 6 minutes. I think it's 5.5 minutes. And then we break that up into like 1.5 minute segments so that you could use that video for small group studies using the General Board of Church and Societies Faith and Facts cards. For March, the theme focuses on fair and equal ordination for all. April's theme focuses on the church is not a building. We care more about the people than the buildings. And so the April one is really focused on the scripture Micah 6:8, and it's talking about doing acts of justice, doing outreach in the community, and then the personal piety piece as well. That's that one. Okay, so those are going to be coming out, but as they are getting ready and linked and live online, the place that you would go to for that, I double check as I talk to you guys about it, is dscumc.org. And then, from there, you can click on the lime green box that's towards the left that says Where Love Lives. But if you wanted the direct URL, it's dscumc.org/where-love-lives. Then you scroll down and you can see all of the months, all the various months are linked there, and as soon as they're available. So you'll see that March and April are not linked, but they will be very soon. Now for annual conference, there's an article that's going to be published pretty soon. Right now, as of the last sessions meeting that we had, and this is all very dependent on the meetings that have been happening with the Council of Bishops, mostly the Council of Bishops. And we're supposed to have another sessions meeting, I believe March 2nd, or it could be, I think it's March 2nd. We have another sessions meeting where we're going to get an update from the bishop about what was discussed, because part of what we believe is being talked about is general conference. Is it going to be rescheduled? Is it actually going to happen? Is it online? All that stuff. Because if there's no general conference again, then and they're planning on having it maybe, oh, well, let's try to have it in way later in the fall. Well, that might mean that we need to schedule another annual conference or our jurisdictional conference, like in the winter, because there's going to be stuff that's voted on in general conference that we'll need to act on. And I don't know if you guys know that last general conference, well, you probably know, last general conference was postponed. So we're still living in the assumed budget information or the budgets that were voted on from what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, general conference. So, apportionment giving, all that is all contingent on what's decided in general conference. So if there is no general conference, if there is a general conference, I don't know, but we'll find out later in March. And for now, we're planning on an online annual conference, June 11th through the 13th. That's the right time frame, but will it actually be 3 days? That's to be determined still. We're planning on the 3 days right now, but this Council of Bishops meeting is really going to dictate if we need the 3 days or not. So deadlines to be aware of. February 28th is the big one. That's when legislation is due to Trinity Donovan and Jennifer Lambert, our annual conference secretary. So you can email them and the links to that stuff, not links, the email addresses to either one of them, I believe are already, if they're not already, I will make sure that they are later today, linked on the annual conference webpage for the Desert Southwest Conference, which is dscumc.org/AC. February 28th is also the deadline to submit any rule changes, and that goes to Jennifer Lambert. I don't remember, we had just said registration was going to open, I want to say it was in March or May. It was an M month. I'm sorry, I don't memorize these things very well. It's too much to remember, but there's still plenty of time, so no worries. We'll get that information to you. And Jennifer is going to publish an article in the March newsletter, which is the first Tuesday of every month. So March newsletter will have that registration information in there. And then the other deadline to be aware of is April 1st. Right now, our plan is still that we will have Episcopal nominations. And so those will go to Jennifer Lambert no later than April 1st. In case you guys are thinking of someone to nominate, I know Jennifer was going to announce that all elders who are full members of any annual conference are eligible for nomination. Persons submitting names shall identify themselves, including eligibility to nominate. And so if you're wondering about that, well, how do I know if I'm eligible to nominate? That information is in the 2020 journal on page 154. I didn't memorize that. I've got it in my notes. And the thing, because I looked up like, oh, I'm trying to remember, just being transparent here, sorry. Okay. The other thing to hear about, I feel like it's kind of a secret sneak peek. So the gathering is happening today and tomorrow, and clergy will be hearing about, some have already heard about it because they've been participating in conversations on this, but Nancy Cushman is going to announce that we are talking about hoping for having official email addresses for all clergy, active and retired, and laypersons assigned to an appointment. So they might be, excuse me, they would likely follow the same format as conference staff. So like my email address is cphillibo, first initial, last name, @dscumc.org, but we'll have a different domain ending for clergy. So it might be dscumc.net. We'll have that information as soon as it's finalized. For now, the reason why I'm mentioning it to you guys is because your clergy is going to hear about it. And so hopefully you'll be able to give them some insider information that in case they're saying like, can you believe that we're going to have to use this email address? I already have 5 others to manage. So some of the stuff to know is we're not forcing anyone to get rid of their email addresses. This new clergy email address is not meant to be or replace a personal email address, your local church email address, any of that stuff. All it is for now, the first phase, which is the only one that I'm banking on right now, but I'm hoping to move on to additional phases. This first phase is just that we're going to create these email addresses, and that's what clergy will use to register for annual conference. That's what they'll use to vote for annual conference. So that would be it. The reason why they're talking about it at the gathering is, number one, to let them know about that, but also to hear feedback, to get questions about it, to find out, is this something that most clergy are going to want to use? Because what happens is, number one, we've already had issues years and years and years, forever and ever. Our journal directory is never accurate. As soon as it's published, it's already out of date. Somebody's moved appointments, so it's no good. And sometimes, for whatever reason, we just can't get the right edit on there. Human typos, whatever. We get the wrong email addresses, and we're doing our best, but it's really tough when that information keeps changing. So if we have this assigned email address for all clergy, that's the way we would, this is now phase 2, that's the way that the conference would publish the newsletters to all clergy, messages from the bishop to all clergy, anything that's conference wide, that would be the official outlet for clergy. So hopefully people wouldn't miss out anymore on important news, because I know for a fact that there's some of the clergy email addresses in our directory actually go to email boxes that are full and no longer receiving messages, or and I think that's the case for some where it's like, okay, that'll be my email address for conference stuff, but it's not the one that I use all the time. And then they forget that one even exists, because I've heard of clergy where that was the case. So hopefully this one, they'll always know that's where your information is going to be. It should reduce issues with registration for annual conference. Last year, we had some clergy where, they've got maybe 5 or 7 different email addresses, and all of them were entered for registration. And trying to troubleshoot with them, trying to figure out which one's the right email address, that was tough. And we had to have a solid email address for voting. Otherwise, they couldn't confirm, and it would be ineligible. So this hopefully will fix all of that. But the other cool stuff about it is, because it's going to be part of our Office 365 environment, that's going to open up all sorts of collaboration tools for clergy to be able to share work team stuff in the Microsoft Teams, to be able to share documents in SharePoint. There's a lot of different things that will open up for clergy. But this is another piece for you guys to correct clergy in case they don't know. Although it does open up all of those tools, it doesn't give them access to download those apps. They'll be able to download their documents, but not the apps. These are free licenses, and so all of those tools will be available online. They'll still be able to open up their email from their phone if that's the way they normally do it. They would just add their clergy email account to whatever app they already use for their mail. It's just that it's not going to let them download Outlook. If they already have Outlook, they can add this to their Outlook, but it just doesn't provide that. Okay. So on March 9th, the Tuesday talk that we have, our normally scheduled Tuesday talk, will be one of the scheduled conversations that we have with clergy. So hopefully there'll be some clergy joining us on that March 9th Tuesday talk. And the main focus is going to be talking about the clergy email. I've got 2 other meetings scheduled. One's March 10th and one's March 11th. March 10th is at 2 p.m. March 11th is at 7 p.m. These are all Mountain Standard Times. And if your pastor wants to register for any of those, they can go to dscumc.org/clergy-email to register and participate in those conversations. those are going to be times where they can raise their concerns. Like, I don't think, there's a privacy issue here, or what about how is the conference going to be protected if someone's using that email address illegally somehow, things like that. We'll talk about it. I am working on a list of policies for the clergy email addresses, but it's taking a little bit because it has to be done in conjunction with or in consultation with our conference chancellor, Marilee Clark. I didn't know there's all sorts of make sense business laws for things like this, how long you should keep the emails. If they don't have their account anymore, how long do we keep it at that point, the retention period, all of that, there's legal consequences to it. So yeah. I meant to ask before, do we have any questions about what I've shared so far?
I have a quick question about the emails.
Okay.
I don't think on 365, if you're not an admin, I don't think that you can forward those emails. Is that something that the pastors could request?
So one of the policies, I'm hesitating because they can do that. And right now, and the way our Office 365 environment is set up, you can. But the way I'm planning on setting up the clergy emails environment is where they won't be allowed to, or I'll at least get some trigger or alert if they do. The reason why I don't want them to do that is because number one, I've been meeting with other conferences to find out, hey, have you guys done this before? If so, how's it working? What's not working? If you stopped doing it, why did you stop? If you tried to do it and it didn't work, why do you think it didn't work? And one of the things I found out is some of the conferences that have been doing this for a while, they're saying, if I could do it all over again, I would create a policy where forwarding is not allowed. What happens is if they're forwarding their emails, one thing that can happen is that jam-packed mailbox, eventually it's not going to accept new email addresses if they're never checking that email account and the emails stay in there. Number two, if something goes into spam, they're not going to get it in that forward. And it could be the message from Bishop that goes into spam. So they'll miss out on stuff. So they would have to go in, even if they forwarded their emails, they'd have to go in on a regular basis to check, to clean it out, to make sure nothing's in their spam, to add new addresses to their account so that it doesn't get spammed or go to the junk folder. So it sounded like forwarding was creating a lot more problems than it was solving. So that's why other conferences are saying we would not allow that, and they felt it would be more successful. So we're going to try it this way and see how it goes. There may be some one-off occasions. Some of our users, some of our clergy, not users, are heavy tech users and can manage it no problem. I just would hate to have someone set it up that way out of ease of like, oh, it's just too many accounts. This would make it so much easier. And then they miss out because they're not used to managing multiple accounts. So, all right, any other questions? Tim.
I'm sorry, I had one this was based on the, what is it? It would be April 11th, the Sunday after Easter, and I think I forwarded that to you. We had a lot of concern from our leadership team about where was the bishop's message they're going to be posted so that we could print that out I thought we only had about 12 or 15. They tell me we now have 24 that are not computer literate and need to have that delivered to them.
Yeah, so for March, I do have the script already, and I'm going to load that up as well for his message and pastoral prayer. For the Sunday after April, I believe that's the case as well, but I don't have it. What I mean is the plan is to have everything written down, but that'll be a good reminder for me to send to Stuart Salvatore about having the sermon and any special messages for the worship service in written form.
Well, the one thing that brought out by our leadership team, they wanted that at least a week in advance so they could get it printed out and get it
Okay.
ready for those people. So that's another concern. That would be what, around the 1st of April.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you're saying the deadline, we should have it up no later than April 1st.
Right.
That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Then I'm going to continue. So February 28th, Sunday. Yeah. DSC Race Coalition. So some of you guys already, I've mentioned it before that every Monday they've been doing a book study on the book I'm Black, I'm Christian, I'm Methodist. And February 28th, with the book study, for the book study that's done with the DSC Race Coalition, February 28th is kind of like the end of it. It starts officially, the webinar starts at 7 p.m. That's the Q&A webinar. But really, most of our stuff shows that it starts at 6 p.m. because they're starting it with a worship service at 6, led by Kimberly Scott and Khalif Smith. And then there'll be a small break. And then we start up again at 7 p.m. with the Q&A webinar. One idea that we put out there early on was that if your church wanted to do something like this, but missed out on the beginning of the book study, because it was announced really quick, you could use this February 28th webinar as the Kickstarter for your church, invite them to come to the February 28th, or plan on using the webinar, which is going to be recorded and available on the DSC Race webpage. Use that whenever it works out with your church calendar as the teaser for starting the book study. And then, get your books and do the book study at your own, I don't know, whatever works out best for you guys. And if you don't have the link for DSC Race, it is linked from the homepage. It's right in the middle. If you go to dscumc.org, it's kind of a golden button that says DSC Race Coalition. But the direct link is also dscumc.org/DSC-race. Okay. And that's all we got. We got a whole half hour of me ranting. Any other questions? Okay. Yesterday, I got a call from one of our church communicators that had a question about, was just curious because she had been watching a lot of these recordings, but she can't make it to the Tuesday talks. She works during the day. And so she was asking about ideas for connecting. She was working on a communication strategy for her church, and she needed some ideas for connecting with people that can't regularly make it to Zoom worship or wherever it's getting published, that maybe don't have access to the internet, or that have access to like social media, but don't have like a webcam or whatever to really fully participate. So I was just sharing some of the different ideas that we've had throughout these conversations that I could think of. And she asked specifically about things like YouTube versus Vimeo. And in that conversation, we were talking about advertisements, how in Vimeo, you don't get all the advertisements like you do in YouTube. And she was talking about monetization. So we talked about, hey, watch out though, if you turn on monetization, you could be causing some problems with your licensing because you've been using all these songs and whatever with the premise that it's not for profit. So I'm sharing this because, we don't always think of asking questions just in time for Tuesday Talks or during this time that we have together. I hope that doesn't inhibit you from, in that moment of, oh my gosh, I've got this going on, reach out to me. It doesn't have to be a scheduled Tuesday talk. You can call me, you can email me, My phone number is in the footer of my email. So anytime that I send you guys a Tuesday talk, you've got my cell phone number. You can send me a text message and we can schedule some time. That's I believe that's from the Book of Discipline. That's like one of the big purposes of my position is I am supposed to be making sure you guys have the tools you need and you know how to use them, and that I'm connecting you with the different resources. So if you have questions or if you're having a problem with something, reach out. I might not even have the answer, but it is helpful to hear that, oh, these 3 churches are experiencing the same problem. Maybe that means we need to develop something, or maybe that means, hey, everybody, heads up, there's a problem right now with Zoom. You all need to update your app, or whatever it is. It's helpful to stay in touch, make this a two-way thing. And likewise, if you guys have experienced something where you've discovered some like, oh, this is the best app ever. I just recently learned about an app called Calendly. It's not an app, it's actually a website resource. And so I'm going to give that a try, test it out, see how it works. But if you guys hear about something like that you either want to test out, that could be something that we do through the conference so that there's not an expense at the local church level. We can't buy everything. We can't, we've got limited funds, but, something that we could work on together. I just want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable to reach out, ask your question, share your news, or critique. If there's something that we put out there that's not quite, hitting the mark, we need to know. Otherwise, we'll keep doing it the same way and messing it up every time. So reach out, stay in touch. Yeah. I guess that's it. Good to see you guys. And don't forget that on March 9th, we may have clergy besides Bob joining us. And well, Andrew, you're clergy too, aren't you? Andrew Ralston? No? Wow, you've got this pastoral presence. So we may have some additional clergy persons joining us on March 9th, and we'll talk about the email stuff. So maybe from now until then, you might have some questions or some items to caution us about. So bring that with you.
Isn't Jim clergy? No? Oh, my mistake.
No, I'm just a lay leader at my church. I have had multiple leadership positions like that, but I'm not a clergy member.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
And I apologize for getting in late. I was on another Zoom, actually a Bible study, but you had mentioned in your email that you were going to say something about something that was going to be announced at the gathering.
Yeah, that was the clergy emails that we will be having. We're attempting to create an email address for all clergy that will be used for their annual conference registration and annual conference voting. But maybe if it works out well and everybody's supportive of it, we can get our policies in order. We'll also have that start to become the official way that the conference or Episcopal office, the districts, when we send something conference-wide, that we'll use that email address as the official email address for clergy. If we do that, the soonest we would roll it out would be July 1st. We'd have to talk about it in annual conference or something, have to have plenty of conversations so people know that's what's going to happen. And it doesn't prevent clergy from emailing the bishop or me or each other with their personal email address. It won't prevent us from responding to their personal email address. It's just when we publish something out to a big list, that's the email address that we'll be using. And when we have to register clergy for something, that's the email address that we will be using. So
will that be taking the place of the Facebook page, and I'm guessing probably not, that there's a Facebook clergy page.
Oh, yeah. No, that's almost like amongst clergy. Like I don't
Yeah.
have any access to that. I can't. I begged and begged so many times, like, please, this is just real quick so I can let them know about blah, blah, blah. I don't remember what it was. And like, sorry, Christina, this isn't anything personal, but this is strictly clergy. And I'm not clergy, so they didn't
Gotcha.
let me in.
Okay.
All right.